With the recent release of the Atari 2600 Plus, people might be wondering what the best controller is for 2-button Atari 7800 games. And it's a question that's been plaguing 7800 owners for some time. The 7800 has a lot of options available to it, especially when you consider that the Prosystem was backwards compatible with most, if not all, 2600 peripherals. And today there are a bunch of specialty controllers and choices presented to us. You have adapters to use more modern favorites, arcade-style joysticks, old-school NES-style pads, couplers, and don't forget all the 2600 stuff like paddles, Trak-Balls, and more. With so many options out there, how will you know what is worth getting for your personal situation? Don't worry, the Atari Network has your back with our Atari 7800 controller guide. All the controllers featured within this video I have either first-hand experience with, or I've done a lot of research into them, and I think I have a pretty good list of choices for you. I'll let you know which ones I recommend, which ones are for what type of gamers, and maybe most importantly, which ones to stay away from. This video will be split into 3 sections. One will be about the original 2600 controllers that you might want to grab and use for certain 7800 games, and most likely the 2600 games. Next, we have the specialty controllers that are useful on the 7800. Some of these might only be compatible with 1 or 2 games, but are still worth considering if you enjoy those games. But first, we're going to take a look at several 2-button options. These 2-button controllers should be compatible with most, if not all, 7800 games, and will probably be useful for playing 2600 games as well. But with all that said, grab a tasty beverage and your favorite snack, because we're going to be looking at a bunch of Atari 7800 and 2600 Plus compatible controllers, and there are a lot. The Proline controller. If you're in North America, then you're probably familiar with the Prolines. The console originally came with 2 of these babies, and well, it's earned the nickname Painline for a reason. Growing up, I had no issues using these, but today you have so many options that it's hard to recommend using just these. But if you purchased a 7800 lot off eBay, Craigslist, or Facebook, then you might have a few of these in various states of working condition. If you don't have one, but would like to acquire one, then I recommend heading over to Best Electronics and picking up one of the ones that they've rebuilt. I did so a few years back, and mine is still holding up very well. The best rebuilt controllers go for around $25, and is the only way I recommend buying a Proline today, unless you're picking up a big lot of stuff, and there are some included. The European Gamepad. Now we're talking. The European Gamepads were included with the 7800 in Europe. Most Americans became wise about these in the 1990s and early 2000s, and they have become very desirable for being authentic and original, but also more comfortable than the Prolines. But like the Prolines, I've come across some that don't work all that great. A lot of them are also missing the screw-in joystick these days, which you'll probably want. I mean, what good is the 7800 gamepad without the thumbstick? Anyway, much like the Proline, I recommend picking these up from Best Electronics, as they offer rebuilt versions that are very solid, and I've had no issues with mine over the years. But they also cost about twice as much as the Proline from Best. If you want authenticity, then this is the way to go, but they've been surpassed in recent years, in my opinion. Telegame's joystick. This was the only off-brand controller that existed back during the 7800's retail life, at least to my knowledge. It's slightly smaller than the original Proline, but other than that, it's nearly identical. But the smaller size actually makes it more uncomfortable in my opinion. There is also a turbo switch which allows you to hold down the left and right buttons for continuous fire, which was a nice idea back in the day. I got one brand new in the box for about $25 on eBay, and I wouldn't recommend paying more than that for one of these. Actually, I really don't recommend picking one up at all, as it just doesn't offer much improvement over the Proline, and I like to call it the Painline Jr. Enough said. Video 61 Gripstick. We love Video 61 here at the Atari Network, and this Gripstick isn't a bad offering in my opinion. A lot of people like these flight stick style controllers, and it feels nice in the hands. The actual stick is real clicky and satisfying to move, and the button placement isn't horrible. But if I'm honest, I don't use it much these days. The suction cups are kind of weird, but they might be nice depending on your situation. And for $30, I think you could do a heck of a lot worse. Even if you don't want the Gripstick, head over to Video 61 and check out their inventory of Atari stuff. It's a cool place. Retro Game Boy's NES style pad. This was my go-to for a very, very long time. The NES style is something that is going to be familiar to a ton of people, and it makes controlling these 7800 games a much easier task. I ended up buying 2 from Retro Game Boys, and they cost right around $40 to $50 from their website and eBay. Unfortunately, both of my gamepads are starting to act up after a few years of use. My one has a cord sort of fraying where it connects to the controller, and I'm not really sure why. I don't do anything to stress it, at least I don't think I do. My other one looks almost perfect cosmetically, but one of the buttons is being a bit finicky and sticks a lot. But this might just be my crummy luck, who knows. Overall, I got about 3 years of solid use out of them, and I still love them to this day. Just be aware that they might not be built to last. Or maybe I'm just too hard on my stuff. I mean, I did beat Karateka with it after all, and that would probably break any controller. OG Hugo's 2-button competition stick. This and a 2-button gamepad prototype was sent to me by Hugo for review on the channel, and that review will be coming soon. Or you can hear my thoughts on it here. I initially thought this was going to be a large joystick like a few other people have offered in the past, but I was surprised to see that it's actually pretty similar to the stock CX40 controller. You know, the regular old 2600 controller. It's a smart design and one I think some people will really want. The arcade-style stick and buttons have that familiar clicky sound and are a joy to use. The price is $45 from their eBay store, and you can grab some different variations from their website. Oh, and links to their store along with Best Electronics, Video 61, and others will be in the description for those wanting anything I show in the video. But back to the 2-button competition stick. I think if you really like the original 2600 design and arcade controls, then this might be a good pickup. But if that doesn't interest you, then you might want to pass on it. I'll save more thoughts on it and the gamepad prototype for an upcoming video, so be sure you're subscribed for that. Bratwurst Arcade-Style Joystick. An AtariAge user named Bratwurst was offering these from the forums and eBay for quite some time. I remember them being priced right around $40, and they feel great, pretty much like OG Hugo's controllers from before. The difference being that this one is about twice as large as Hugo's, so depending on your needs, that might be a positive or a negative. I've used this stick quite a bit, and it's held up well over the years. It works great, and I actually like the size for resting my hand on it while I play. Overall, I recommend it, but I'm not sure if Bratwurst's version is still for sale. If not, you can probably find similar ones on eBay and Etsy, but I don't know if the quality is going to be the same. Seagull 78 Sega Genesis Controller Adapter. This is probably a good place to start if you already own a Sega Genesis 3 or 6-button controller. With the Seagull 78, you can use the before-mentioned controllers as 2-button 7800 ones. So if you like the gamepads from the Genesis, then this should be a no-brainer. And the new 7800 Mega Controller Adapter does the same thing, but also adds functionality to the 7800 game drive, such as save states and more. You can get the Seagull 78 from AtariAge for about $30, and the Mega Controller Adapter for about $15. But the Mega Adapter is hardly ever in stock, at least in my experience. Ed Laddin stuff. The Ed Laddin line of controllers is the Rolls-Royce of 7800 controllers. They cost about $150 to $200, but I've heard nothing but praise heaped onto these things. Ed Laddin only uses the best parts, and my podcast co-host got one a few months back and loves it. He stated that it works well and is surprisingly light for its size. Add on the fact that you can get a variety of custom colors for the buttons and stick, and a lot of different layouts as well, and you have something that is really worth showing off to the world. Too bad I'm poor, or I'd get one and try it out for you all. But if you're not a broke YouTube loser like me, I think most people would tell you to go for it. Commotron Turbo 2000 Super Retro Gamepad. You could get these off Amazon for a while, but they seem to be out of stock for now, and maybe they won't be available anymore. They're wireless and are compatible with a whole slew of retro consoles and computers. You have to set it up somehow to be used in 2-button 7800 mode, and I've heard that there's the occasional problem getting it set right, but overall most users seem to like it. It uses the standard NES controller design, but has 4 face buttons. Once again, my podcast co-host did a video on these a while ago, and I'll have a link to his review in the description if you're curious, but they might be getting harder to find now. With that, we've covered a good number of 2-button controller options for the Atari 7800. I recommend looking through these and seeing what matches your needs and play style. If you want something for general use, then give the rebuilt Europad a go, or the Retro Game Boys controller. Once the prototype from OG Hugo is done, that could be a good alternative as well. If you want something with traditional arcade controls, then Ed Laddin is the best money can buy. But the 7800 arcade joystick from Bratwurst and Hugo's 2-button Competition Pro should serve you well depending on how big you want your controller to be. But I think the Seagull 78 and 7800 Mega adapter will be the go-to for most users, unless you don't already have Sega controllers and don't particularly like them. You could also wait and see what Atari themselves are going to offer for use with the 2600 Plus. As they stated, there's going to be a 2-button controller in the works. But at this moment, I don't know when they're coming. But with all that said, it's time to go to section 2 of the video. CX40, aka the original 2600 joystick. Everybody knows and loves this one-button wonder from the original 2600 and the newly released 2600 Plus. And it does work on 7800 games that don't need the second button. As a kid, I used these pretty often, but today I really just use my 7800 controllers for playing 2600 games as well. Still, if you're an Atari fan, or somebody who just picked up a 2600 Plus, then you already have one. And it's a solid choice for playing Atari games. That's really all there is to say. The Atari Trak-Ball. These trackballs are large and come in a variety of styles. You have a couple from Atari themselves, and even places like Video 61 offer their own variations. What I like about the one I have, and it's probably like this on most of them, is the switch that can allow it to run in joystick mode or true trackball mode. This is a must if you want to get Centipede Trackball Edition and other games like it from AtariAge. But time has not been kind to these trackball controllers, much like everything else in the world. So you want to make sure that you find a working one, or if you know somebody that can fix them up if they aren't rolling like they should. Expect to pay between $50 to $100 depending on condition and which version you pick up. But if you're not interested in the few games that are compatible with trackball controls, then you can safely skip this one. The Atari Paddle Controller, and by extension, Racing Controller. The paddles were a great part of the original Atari, and to this day there's nothing like playing Night Driver, Super Breakout, or Warlords with the paddles. And yes, they work on the 7800, but I don't think there's many games that use them. The great and powerful Robert DeCrescenzo put out AtariAge Super Circus and Crazy Bricks that you might want them for, but those games can be played with a standard controller too. But you want to be careful picking these up secondhand, as they tend to get jittery when they get old and dirty. Lucky for you, you can pick up brand new ones direct from Atari off Amazon for around $40, or you can head over to places like Video 61 to get a unique take on paddles. If you have an Atari 7800, 2600, or the Plus, then I suggest getting a good pair of working paddles, as they are a great part of the Atari experience, and one that you can't get anywhere else. The Hyperkin Trooper CX40 knockoff. At first glance, you might expect this controller to be a 2-button one, but it's actually only compatible with 1-button games. The 2 buttons both do the same thing, and allow for right and left-handed play, which might be important to you, but I can't say it was for me. Overall, I like the way this one fell out of the box, and almost preferred it to the original, but I don't know how well time will treat it, as I only just got mine a few weeks back. The thing is, you probably have a ton of original CX40 controllers, so unless you really want to be able to use this left-handed, I don't see much value in paying $20 for this one. But it's out there if you want it. Hyperkin Ranger All-in-One Paddle Controller. The Ranger is another offering by Hyperkin, and was introduced along with the Retron 77 console, which was a clone of the Atari 2600. This thing attempts to be an all-in-one solution for both 2600 one-button joystick games, as well as paddle games, and it seems to have good reviews on Amazon. I got one a few years ago and I could never get the paddle control to work right, but maybe I got a defective one? Either way, I don't personally recommend this, but 266 people on Amazon can't be wrong. At least, I don't think they could be wrong. Anyway, it costs $25 new from Amazon, and I personally say proceed with caution. Plus, it doesn't have the charm of real paddles. I mean, come on, real paddles are cool, right? So those are some options that work on the 7800 for original 2600 gameplay, but there are a ton more than just these. These are just some options for what I think most people would want on the Atari 7800. Personally, I know I wanted to be able to play paddle games, and I would recommend just grabbing them direct from Atari, either on their website or from Amazon. I also love trackball stuff, but I probably use that far less than any other controller I own. But with this section out of the way, I want to touch on a few specialty controllers and options that might only work for a couple games right now. There are some interesting things in this section, so make sure you stay tuned to check them all out. SNES to Atari adapter. This baby is a game changer for a lot of people and came free with my copy of Petsky Robots from AtariAge. It seems that a lot of people love the SNES controller, and for good reason. When it comes to two-dimensional games, these things are pretty hard to beat, and it allows for more complicated controls for games that are way more ambitious than what was originally released back in the day. Hey, if I don't have to get up and flip switches to perform functions on 7800 games, then sign me up. I'm all for it. But this thing isn't compatible with much right now. According to the AtariAge website, it works with Attack of the Petsky Robots, Artie, and Millie and Molly, and that's it. It can be had for a whopping $7 from AtariAge, and I think a lot more compatibility will be coming soon. So grab it if you're interested. Atari XG1 Light Gun. Some people might not be aware that the 7800 had about 5 light gun games back in the day, and it had a light gun controller. The XG1 was packed in with the Atari XEGS, but could be used on the 7800 for games like Alien Brigade, Crossbow, Barnyard Blaster, Meltdown, and Sentinel. Like with most light guns, you need a CRTV to get it to work properly. But nothing beats using an actual light gun, in my opinion. However, this thing often shoots sporadically, and feels pretty unreliable. It goes for around $60 to $80, and there's actually a different light gun that I recommend for playing on the Atari 7800. Sega Master System Phaser Light Gun with adapter. And here it is. With the proper adapter that you can try to make yourself or purchase from online retailers and eBay, you can turn the Sega Master System Phaser into an Atari 7800 compatible light gun. If you already have one of these, then it shouldn't cost much to get it working, but I think I paid around $50 many years ago for both the gun and the adapter. It's probably gone up since then. For whatever reason, I find the Phaser to be much more accurate than the XG1, and it seems that some other people agree with me too. If you're serious about light gun games and want the best experience for stuff like Alien Brigade and Crossbow, then this is what I personally recommend you use. Robotron 2084 Proline Coupler. This can be obtained easily from online retailers like Good Deal Games Homebrew Heaven for about $18. And if you have a few good working Prolines, not included, then this should make Robotron much easier and much more enjoyable. The controllers fit nicely and tightly, and shouldn't go anywhere once you have them slotted in. Then you can use the left joystick to move and the right one to fire, just as the good folks at GCC intended. If you have the Prolines and enjoy Robotron, then this should be a no-brainer, and I've enjoyed it immensely, but it doesn't work for games that require use of the middle two buttons. It also works really good for Time Salvo, which is a great homebrew that you can pick up from AtariAge. But this isn't your only choice for Robotron and Time Salvo gameplay, because Robotron 2084 Retro Game Boys Dual Stick. You can pick up one of these bad boys from Retro Game Boys, and this baby is built to last, as I have had no issues with it over the years. It works fantastic for Robotron and Time Salvo, and is my personal go-to for playing those games. Now, it can be considered a bit pricey at around $55 to $60, but if you love Robotron, then this should be a no-brainer. Seriously, my scores have improved immensely since getting this baby, and it can really only be matched by the coupler and one other thing when it comes to Robotron. Yes, there is one other, and that's why we have to cover the Ed Laddin Super Twin 78 Arcade Controller. If Ed Laddin already sells the Rolls-Royce of controllers, then this baby is a twin-motor, supercharged sports car. Once again, my podcast co-host has obtained one of these and absolutely loves it. But for about $180 or more, you can say that it better be darn good. You can expect all the optimization from the other Ed Laddin products, and I've only ever heard good things about the Twin 78. Now, if only Vinny would have me over so we can huddle close together and play some Mario Brothers late into the evening. What was I saying? Oh yeah, final thoughts. We covered just over 20 controllers you can use for your Atari 7800 and 2600 plus. And it's still nowhere near everything you can get. There are a lot of variations and stuff I didn't touch on, like the kids controller, the keypad controller for Star Raiders, and many more. But what do I recommend picking up? What are the must-haves of this list? Well, as I said before, I think you can safely get the Seagull 78 or the 7800 Mega adapter if you already have and enjoy Genesis controllers. If that doesn't interest you, and you really like the NES style, then pick up the Retro Game Boys offering, or maybe Hugo's offering when it's available. If joysticks are more of your thing, then take a look for Bratwurst's arcade stick, or OG Hugo's 2-button competition stick. And if money is no object for you, then pick up an Laddin controller and make all your friends jealous. I also recommend getting a good set of paddles, preferably the new ones from Atari. Paddle games are an excellent experience, and you need them if you want to be a true Atari fan. The rest of the stuff you can get if you think you'll have use for it. If you have a CRT TV and love light gun games, then get the Master System phaser and pick up the adapter. Alien Brigade and Crossbow have given me hours of enjoyment this way, but nothing compares to the Coupler or Retro Game Boy's Robotron 2084 controller, at least in my opinion. If you love that game, then you'll want one of those. Or again, if money is no object, then pick up the Laddin Twin 78. Your friends will whisper about how cool you are when you're not around. But now I want to hear from you guys. What is your favorite controller when it comes to the Atari 7800, or heck, just Atari in general? Did I miss anything that you think should have been included in this video? And do you think I got any of the information wrong? If so, let me know down in the comments below. Okay guys, it's time for me to sign off. With all that said, I'm the 7800 Pro System Gamer, the 2-button compatible controller tester here at the Atari Network, and I'd like to thank you all for watching my video on Atari 7800 controllers. And remember, stay classy, Atarians.